Hello, and welcome to CHD Wise, an education series for patients and families. My name is Rebecca Acosta, and I am the Education Coordinator at Conquering CHD. Today, I'm hosting an honest and vulnerable discussion with families who have lost a loved one to congenital heart disease. It will be emotional, but these voices are vital in our community and should be elevated. For part one of this panel, I am joined by Heather and Eric Speakman, Rashaan Ingram, and Tori Smith. Thanks to each of you so much for participating. Today, we're going to start the panel by having each of you introduce yourselves, your families, and the loved one you lost to CHD. Reshawn, would you like to go first?
Of course. Yeah, my name is Rashaan Ingram. I lost my firstborn son to congenital heart defect. He had a double outlet right ventricle with a VSD. His date of birth September 28th. His date of death was November the 4th.
Right. Heather and Eric?
Hello, my name is Eric Speakman. This is Heather Speakman. We had a daughter, youngest daughter, Maddie Speakman. She was born with HLHS, hypoplastic left heart syndrome. She had a bunch of other issues as well, but the HLHS was the main condition that she had. She lived for 41 days, was born, we're coming up on her birth date, October 20th, 2017, and then passed away November 30th, 2017.
Tori?
I'm Tori Smith, and my sixth child was Sterling Smith. He was born what we thought was a perfectly healthy baby, and I brought him home on day 3. When he was 13 months old, that month he started not feeling well, and we thought he had an upper respiratory infection or just a cold or maybe some allergies. We really didn't know what. I kept taking him to the doctor. We didn't know what, and he stopped breathing on December 1st, 2011, at the age of 13 and a half months old. And he was kept alive on life support for 2 days, but he had been without oxygen too long, so we had to take him off of life support. And then we found out on autopsy that he had multiple congenital heart defects, and that took like 8 months after he died. So, and tomorrow's his birthday. He would be turning 10 tomorrow. So.
Oh, happy birthday, Sterling. Oh,
yeah.
Thank you. Thanks to all of you for coming on and sharing with us. I really appreciate your passion and elevating the family, the voices of bereaved families. I've come to know all of you guys, and I really appreciate it. So we're gonna kind of move into like a question and answer kind of thing. We talked about these questions a little bit before we started. And so for the audience, I'm just gonna read the question out, and then you guys can jump in however you like to answer. The first one is one that we get a lot, but it's a little broad. So what do you want other people to know about what it's like losing a loved one to congenital heart disease? Heather?
I think the thing that I've learned that I would like to relay to other people is that our loss doesn't stop at year 1. You see so much support for the first birthday, for the first anniversary, after they pass, after they die. And for me, it's been hard to adjust to that type of outreach. And for me, I would just say that the coming years, year 2, year 3, we're coming up on year 3, and those other anniversaries are just as important. And if you have to try harder, I would say try harder, because there's people that are close to us that I would never expect to forget a birthday or forget an anniversary, and they don't say anything. And one thing that somebody had told me shortly after Maddie died that I will always hold with me is the worst thing that you can say is nothing at all. And I've lived by that advice. And even if it's something as simple as I'm thinking of you, a heart, whatever it is you need to put out there so that they know that their child or a family member is loved, is something that you can never really go wrong for. So that's what I would probably take away from losing somebody.
Eric?
Yeah, I guess kind of the echo what she's saying. Yeah, that just to try to make an effort, and losing of a child is hard. It sucks, and to put a kind of time limit on someone's grief is, I think that's what society kind of does. I think after the first year, everybody expects you like, well, why aren't you over this already? It's going to be a lifelong struggle, and some days are worse than others, and sometimes you're going to start having more good days than bad days, but trying to kind of give people grace in that time of grief.
Tori?
I think the same thing, because this year, like, it's his 10th birthday, so in December it'll be 9 years since he died, and yeah, it doesn't, like, I'm not crying every single day, because in the beginning I think you cried like I cried every single day, and I couldn't do anything, and obviously life does go on, but I take him with me in every single thing that I do, and there hasn't been one moment of a day that has, since he left, that I don't think about him, that he isn't the first thing I think about and the last thing I think about every day. And I wonder what he would be doing. Would he be playing football with his brothers? So I think people do think, I think it makes them uncomfortable, so they think it's going to make us uncomfortable, and it doesn't. When you remember our child, like when you say his name, that I'm already thinking about him every day, even if I don't say it. So when you remember him, when you let me know that you thought about him too, that's like such a tremendous gift. There's nothing in the world that is that amazing as somebody who says, oh my God, I saw a giraffe and I thought of Sterling and I just wanted you to know. Or I picked up this giraffe for you because it reminded me of Sterling and I wanted you to have it. Like, I have a million giraffes, but each one, I can remember every single one because it just matters that much. So I think, like, people need to know, even 10 years later, like, they should still do those things for us. So.
Rashaan, any thoughts?
All I can do is agree with what they else have said. From my standpoint, I agree with them with the time limit. A lot of people feel like there's a time limit and there's a time limit and there's a way people should grieve. And there's not a time limit, and there's not a way that one person copes and deals with one thing that is perfect for everyone. Acknowledgement is the biggest support that you can give, along with words of encouragement. Like for me, I didn't start my bereavement process until 2 years after my son passed. And, it was a hard pill to swallow, when you actually have to deal with something versus going along with things as if they're okay. Because a lot of times we try to move along in life like things are okay, and it's really not.
Whew, it's giving me a lot of heart palpitations already. So the next one is, I think I might know a little bit about how you all are going to answer because we've become friends over the years. But how do you honor your loved ones around the year, during holidays or special anniversaries or birthdays, or other special dates in your family? What do you do special for your kiddos?
I guess you can go first.
There we go. Good.
We do a couple different things throughout the year. We have, I wish we had an example of it, but we have.
Totally forgot it.
We make these, or Heather's made these cards, and it kind of gives a brief description of Maddie's condition, kind of like a little informational card. Kind of has her name, her birthday, date of death on there, and we carry them with us. When we go to a restaurant or something, we will kind of pay it forward to people. Well, sometimes, like, just going to Starbucks, we'll buy someone in the line behind us their order, and we'll give that card to them, to whoever the lady at the cash register is like, hey, can you pass this on? Or when we leave a tip at a restaurant, we will include that. We'll try to be a little bit more generous. So we do that kind of throughout. Yeah, there you go. So it's just little card. Doesn't have a picture on it or anything, but it kind of just.
Oh, it's backwards. You guys can't read it, but it says, we'd like to share Maddie's story. Maddie gained her wings after a six-week battle with congenital heart disease. 1 out of 100 live births result in CHD. It is our hope a cure will be found soon so that families will never have to experience losing a child. This is our passion.
So that's just one small way that we've been able to kind of keep her memory alive and kind of show some sort of advocacy for CHD. And it's not the most grandest idea of ever, but it's something that we do, and I feel like we get more joy of kind of getting that or seeing that reaction from whoever we hand that to than they would ever get. And sometimes we've kind of left those anonymously and just kind of left them on a table, and Heather's included her social media stuff on it, and people have contacted us after and kind of let us know how much that meant to them at that point in time and stuff like that. So it's pretty nice to kind of see that outreach, especially with that, especially paying it forward. And we've kind of before have asked people to print those out, and kind of on her birthday or on her date of death is to pay it forward to someone and try to give those out.
And if you're mean, you get to.
Well, I will go ahead and say, you have my address, mail me some, so we can do that on Maddie's birthday. Yeah. Tori, do you want to go next?
Sure. Sterling always had the Loveys, so that's one thing I did. I've kind of slacked off on it the last few years because I have super busy. I went back to school and whatever, but he always had a Lovey, and he loved giraffes. He had his little Sophie giraffe. So I always would find, for several years, we would make little Loveys that with like a giraffe print. And then we would attach cards because we didn't know that he had heart defects. And I know they've gotten better at finding them. And now they have, the babies get tested with the pulse ox before they leave. And that's great, but it still wouldn't have detected his heart defects either. So it just has some signs and symptoms for parents of like what to look for. And then in his memory. And then like his birthday's tomorrow. So we still get a cake. I ask around friends. So like he would be turning 10, like what's the cool toy right now? What do 10-year-old boys like? And then we'll go, and the boys and I will go and buy the toy and then find a child like his age. Or like we used to do the hospital, but this year with COVID, you can't just go to the hospital. So we'll probably find somebody that has a son or a child his age and donate it to that child in his memory. And we do that on Christmas too, Easter. Just anytime I can think of doing anything, I'll just quietly go buy it. If I think like, oh, I wonder if he would like this, and I would really want to buy it for him. So I might just buy it for a kid and just randomly drop it off for that, So that's what we do. We used to do parties. We used to do other things, but we don't really do that so much anymore. And then me going back to school, I think he encouraged that in me. And so I hope to be able to work in health department and work with parents in getting their children screened for things and getting that follow-up care that's crucial. So I'm doing that in his memory. So.
Great. Rashaan?
Oof, that's a lot to follow up behind, For me, I do kind of the pay it forward as well. So I would be at a restaurant, whatever, and I'll pay whoever tab, that just look like they're going through something, or, waitresses have a pretty good feel of the individual. We'll do a balloon release on his birthday and his death anniversary. We would get a cake and celebrate, like we would do a host of small little things on his birthday and around his birthday time frame. This year we actually were talking about actually taking a trip back to Seattle in memory of him, but due to COVID, that got messed up. So it just little small things. Then like around Christmas time, you know, we hang out his ornaments up and put his clay moldings out and things of that nature. I'm actually, and if you guys know anyone, please let me know. I'm actually trying to find someone who could actually do like a clay mold replica of his heart.
Wow.
When you find one, I want one too.
Yeah, let me know.
No pressure.
That's an amazing idea. Wow. So the next one is a question that I think many of the bereaved families consider and think about and talk about a lot, but those of us in the CHD community that are not bereaved families don't. So the question is, how do members of your circle, whether that's your family, close friends, neighbors, how do they all process grief differently? And I'm super glad to have Eric and Reshawn specifically, because I know dads don't get a lot of, or as much love as the moms do sometimes. So Reshawn, do you have any thoughts about how your family processed grief differently?
This is a pretty in-depth question, and I'm gonna give you guys the reason why. Because people don't know exactly what to say to you, you know, and as a husband and wife, like a lot of times us as men find ourselves putting our feelings to the back burner to comfort and support our wife, or even vice versa. It's not a one-way street. So in times of need, usually in hard times like that, like we try, right? We try to be that strength and that support for our family. You know, I can speak firsthand because after the death of our son, our relationship kind of just went downhill. You know, due to us not being on one accord, being able to talk about it, you know, being able to openly communicate about how we felt and how the things that each other do makes us feel. In addition to that, for me, all I need from like close friends and family is like just reach out, you know, from time to time. Just check to see if your loved one is doing okay, if they need anything, if they have additional kids, if they need anything, because a lot of times you just think of that person and that individual versus everything else that goes on around them. You know, you lose your way, you lose focus, you tend to lose your mental stability. I feel like I kind of went off on a tangent a little bit. So can you?
It's good. I like it.
No, that's perfect. No, I really appreciate that. I know many families have unique struggles, but when we get together like this, we find out that some families have really common struggles. So, Tori, do you want to add anything about how your family processed their grief after Sterling's death?
I mean, I'm a single parent, and I was when he died. My children were little, so they really struggled, and I think a lot of people didn't understand how much their grief was too. Like Silas was 3.5 turning 4, and the first night home with him, he couldn't sleep, and like he stood up and he put he wanted Sterling, and he said he couldn't sleep, so he kept walking around, and I grabbed him and I said, "What's wrong?" And he said, "I want my baby." And I said, "I want him too, and he's with God now," like, because I thought that would help him. And he stood up on my bed. It always makes me cry, I'm sorry. And he put his hands up and he said, "Okay, you can give him back to me now. Like, give him back. I want him back." And they were like extremely concerned. with like, does he have his passy? Do they know that that he's allergic to cinnamon, that he shouldn't have cinnamon? Do they know what his favorite songs are? Like, those are the things that my kids like focused on. And I think a lot of people thought it was cute or thought it was like, I don't know, they dismissed a lot of them because they were little, and they'll just move on and they'll be fine. But, you know, it's 10 years later and they still talk about him the same. They still wish that he was here. They still, like, they were talking the other day and they're like, wow, 10, like he would be playing football with us now, wouldn't he? He would be doing, and I saw it because Silas, again, he's 12 now, and he stopped and he choked up, and he got really upset because he doesn't have like memories of him. He remembers him, but he doesn't have like the solid memories of him anymore. And that hurt him. And I think most people don't understand that at all either. So I don't know if I'm answering your question correctly or not, but like, I think everybody just grieves differently. And I think in our family, like everybody has a role, and everybody is going to miss a different thing about him. Maybe, I don't know. I really don't know how I'm answering this, but like, I just think everybody is so different, and for our family, like, you just need to support everybody in the family and understand that there is no right or wrong way to grieve. And I really don't think there's a right or wrong way to support your family members and your friends, as long as you're trying to be there and you're not trying to make it better, and you're just listening to them and acknowledging them and remembering their child or their loved one. I think that's all you really can do. And so, yeah.
Heather and Eric, do you want to share about your family?
So I'll talk about the kids, and then Eric can talk about his experience as a dad. But I think just within our children now are, I'm going to have a 16-year-old this month, like, pray for us, right? She's a good kid, but pray for us anyway, because she's still mine. But and then Gage is 7 now, and Hayden is 5. And, you know, I remember specifically a story that Eric's parents told us, because the little ones were in Albuquerque with his parents when Maddie was sick. No, they didn't. It's still hard to talk about, but Gage and Hayden never got to meet her. And the week that she was super sick and we made the decision to let her go, Eric's mom told us a story about how Gage went to the store with her, and he stopped in the baby aisle and he said, "Grandma, can I get this for my baby sister? She doesn't have any toys in the hospital. She needs toys in the hospital." And he didn't know that she was sick, and he didn't know that she was gonna die that week. And when we had to tell him that his sister wasn't coming home, he got so upset, and he ran and he hid underneath the covers, and I wanted to hide with him. And Hayden was young at the time, you know, she was 2, she didn't get it, but they still make it a point to talk about her and include her, whether that's setting the table. She's on our chore chart right now. Maddie has to pick up 1 toy because they always include her. Does Maddie get in trouble when she doesn't pick up her toy? I don't really know how to answer that, but it's a moment, or it's always a thought in their minds, whereas Tristan is just completely different. She acknowledges her on her own. When I ask her if she wants to do videos, a part of, you know, what it's like to grieve a child, she's like, nope, I don't want to do it. And that's just because she's, you know, really shy and very private. But to us, it's just second nature for them to include Maddie in our everyday life. And there was one time last week where, you know, Hayden is so vivid about it that she's like, "Come on, Maddie, let's go." Or she'll be talking in a corner. I'm like, "Who are you talking to?" She's like, "I'm talking to Maddie." And usually in the beginning, it kind of like, whew, okay. And one of my cousins was like, that's a little creepy. And I guess we're just used to it, you know, like for us, that's normal for her. And I would never want anybody to dim that light that they have of talking of the sister that they never got to meet, because that's important to them. That's their baby sister. And regardless of whether or not they met her, they know her. And they love her just like they would if she was gone or if she was here. So it's just interesting to see how differently they all are at the different ages. But, you know, it's hard either way, you know.
Yeah, and just to kind of go off with that, like our youngest daughter now, Hayden, she's very bold, and she'll walk up to a complete stranger in a restaurant and be like, you know, my baby sister died, and she usually tells them why. She will tell them because she had a heart defect or something like that. So she will tell, and it kind of
she don't
care. She's pretty bold in her kind of love and her grief for her sister, and it gets awkward sometimes, especially when, you know, people aren't used to it or know us or know our story and stuff like that. So it kind of catches people off guard. But I kind of love that about her, that she is pretty bold when it comes to that. And then just the difference with, you know, that's just our kind of just our small family unit. But I guess giving grandparents a little bit of grace too on the grieving process, on kind of both sides. My parents and Heather's mom and dad, in the beginning it was like, well, why are you so upset? This is my child, you know, that passed. But then to kind of take a step back and realize, like, well, we are their children and we lost a child, and kind of that ripple effect and how it affects them as well. Kind of, you know, being able to kind of, like I said, giving them grace when you can, in their grief as well, because they experienced a loss too. And then I guess going back to me and my grief, I would say we're going on year 3 and I'm barely starting to kind of address it fully. I feel like the first couple of years was almost like emergency mode for myself, and the way to get through it was to put it on the back burner or internalize it or compartmentalize it. And, you know, life still goes on. And for me was to kind of get through that and to kind of be able to support Heather and the kids, was to kind of put my grief in that moment aside, so I could still go to work every day. So I could, you know, make sure that we have a roof over our head, you know, food in the kids' stomachs and stuff like that. And, you know, no matter how much I want to just kind of break down and stop, I couldn't, just because, you know, life does go on. And it's not until now that I feel like I'm really able to start kind of processing that grief and those emotions. And I think that's why the kind of societal time frame on grief that a lot of people give doesn't really match up to reality. You know, like I said, it was emergency mode for 2 years, and now, you know, I'm starting to, I guess, you know, quote unquote, let my hair down and kind of try to process those emotions and process that grief, and, you know, trying to find those outlets and those resources to help me, guide me through those. That's kind of where we're at now.
I really appreciate that. When I reached out to all of you and to the other families that are going to be on the next panel, almost everybody, when they responded to me individually, said that the one thing they want everyone to know is that, you know, we don't talk about those who die from CHD in our community. And our American society at large, we don't talk about death, especially of children. And so considering that, we also don't talk about how your religious beliefs or spiritual beliefs play a part and how you grieve. So if you are comfortable with it, if you have a religious belief system, if you want to talk about how that helped you or gave you support during your grieving process. If everybody's comfortable with that.
I would say for us, the only way we were able to kind of get through the way we have was through our faith. Before before we knew anything was wrong with Maddie, I grew up Catholic, and I kind of stopped going to church, and it wasn't until, and I kind of had my own kind of quarrels and stuff with religion, and it wasn't until we actually found out that something was wrong with Maddie that I knew I needed to explore and kind of follow my faith. I was going to need it. And going through the grief and through her, well, even pre-grief, would be going through just the struggles of her going to the hospital, figuring out what her condition was and that sort of thing, that relying on my beliefs kind of, helped us through it. And once she did pass, me and Heather both kind of rededicated our lives, and we both got baptized as Christians, and kind of dived head into the church, and kind of we would serve every Sunday. I worked the night shift, and I would get off at 6 a.m. Sunday morning after an 8-hour shift, and then go straight to church and serve for 2 services. And that was some, yes, I was tired, and yes, it was difficult, but, it kind of re-energized me in my faith and going through that process of finding my relationship with my God, and and kind of how to process this grief. And it's a continued struggle. Sometimes, I get upset and, ask, why did this happen to us? Why did it happen to her? But still trying to be faithful and kind of, understand that she was here for a reason.
We knew that she was never meant to stay, but there's little snippets, or somebody had said it in a conference that we went to, God winks, and like that term always really stuck with me. And I always see little God winks of whether that be Maddie, or when I'm having a really hard day and her song comes on the radio or on shuffle. And, we found our church family when we moved here to have Maddie, and that church family was there with us to go through our grief. And the first time we went to actual church, there were people who said, how is she doing? And I didn't even know who these people were. And that had a big role to play in our continued faith, and just to see the goodness in people when you're going through the darkest time is probably something that we'll always carry forward with our faith.
Thank you for sharing. Rashaan or Tori, do you have anything that you wanted to add?
I'll go. I think religion plays a big part, because you have to hold on to something. I grew up Christian, and I would go to church every Sunday growing up. My family, my mom made sure that we was in church faithfully every Sunday. And it was something that stuck with me. But on the other end of the spectrum, what ended up happening with me, once we actually ended up losing our child, I started losing faith. So I stopped going to church. I started asking God, why? Like, why? I mean, from the age of 12, I prayed every day and every night, all the way up until that night. Lord, whatever you do in my life, please never allow me to lose a child or a sibling, because I didn't know how I would process it. And once that happened, it was like I just had a pause. Everything in my life was just, I was in a shell shock. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to express myself, who to talk to. Although I still would pray every night, because I knew that it was a reason. What the reason was, I couldn't and still can't actually process and find that answer for it. But I know that there was a reason. And all I had to do was, what helped me with that was maintaining my faith. Although I did lose faith, but I did end up finding a renowned, stronger faith.
Tori, did you want to add anything?
I was much more religious before he died. And I still can't really get back into it. I'm intrigued by it. It has made me want to learn about other religions, in part because I want to know how other people in other communities, or like other areas, like what they think about death, because it intrigues me, because we have such a fear of it and it's such a taboo thing. And I just wonder, like, how I find it intriguing how other religions and other I can't think of the word, but like in other countries, like that don't have religion, but how do they look at death, and how do they honor their loved ones, and what do they do? Because I've just found that incredibly interesting to me, because most have, like, it's a part of their life, more so than it is for us, I think, in America. So I find that interesting, but I'm not overly religious at all. I think I'm more spiritual now, and I really believe that he sends me signs and that he's in everything that I do. So, yeah.
Thank you. I know these are really hard questions. If somebody was asking me these, I would be panicked. But now I wanted to ask you guys a little bit of a lighthearted question for those families that are new to the bereaved community and really struggling and going through the thick of it. What are some of the your favorite supports that, whether it was books or websites, if you attended any camps or retreats or online support groups, what's a couple things that really helped get you through some hard times?
For us, through Children's Hospital here in Colorado, their bereavement program, they've reached out to us, and they had initial like an 8-week kind of group that you would go through. Due to kind of mine and Heather's like work schedules, we couldn't go together. We went separately, but kind of the finding community, in that group kind of helped both of us process a lot of things. And, some of those people that we've met in that group, we've been able to relate with and are almost like family to us now. And it wasn't, we had very similar experiences. All of us lost a child, but, they were all in different ways and ages. We only had Maddie for 41 days, and there was other people whose kids were like 20 when they passed away. So kind of getting into that group and just kind of seeing, or, not necessarily kind of judging or anything like that, but seeing how grief looks at all the different ages, it kind of gives you hope. I feel like that helped us a lot, was through that. And then they have, once you get done with children's, once you get done with the 8-week, they have a monthly group that meets. With COVID, we really haven't gone. It's kind of been virtual. So we've kind of slacked up a little bit on it, but that's one thing that has helped me. And I would say if anybody newly, bereaved or anything like that, is to search out those groups, or, find the material that you need, and try it all. Because, one thing might not be, one size doesn't fit all. So if it works for me and Heather, it might not work for you. But, I would say don't give up on trying to find, resources or outlets.
One book I found super helpful that talks about society and the standards and the boxes people put grieving people in was a book called It's Okay That You're Not Okay by Megan Devine. And it really helps you understand society and why people say things and why they do things, which helped me understand that people aren't doing things mean intentionally. They just don't know what to say. And even I think something that I wish I would have told day one grieving Heather is that you have to give yourself grace. You have to love yourself enough to understand that it's going to be ugly and it's going to be nasty, but you have to keep going. And I would say, don't listen to the people that want to be negative and the people that don't. Oops. Sorry, Bill, not today. But the people who say negative things and even that imaginary voice in your head that says, oh, these people think that I should be over this by now. Like, who told you that? Nobody told you that. You do grief and your own pace, and don't let anybody tell you any different. These are your feelings and nobody else's. So if they don't like it, they can go somewhere else.
Rashaan, what were some of the things that really helped you the most that you can remember?
Close friends, when we went through it, I was still active military. So just that support, and there's a lot of things that we were not able to do and things of that nature just due to the political aspect of it. But I also read the same book, It's Okay That You're Not Okay, as well. And it was something that helped me as well. But for the most part, it was just talking, praying, having an outlet, a friend that just listens, because sometimes you just want to be heard.
For me, I did the 8-week course too. Our hospital did that, and then they had a support group. I think in the very beginning, I found the support group really helpful, but as time has gone on, I find myself not really wanting to be so much a part of it, because the new raw grief, like if I'm around it a lot, it takes me right back to it. And I kind of feel like a bad person saying it, because I know those people need support and I will try to support them. But there's certain time, like around this time of year, with it being his birthday and that, I can't, because I will easily go right back to where I was, and it's really painful for me. So I don't always want to be there. But having a good friend, I found a few good friends that their children died around the same time as mine. And they're just people I can call whenever. And then for me, honestly, doing advocacy and being able to go and share my story, and then switching from working with, you guys, to then doing like newborn screening and helping with that, it gave me kind of a purpose and an outlet to channel my grief into. So I think for me, I think that's what everybody needs to do. You need to like find what makes you feel again, because I think you don't really feel. I spent several years very numb and very like in pain. It was very painful or numb, and I would just alternate back and forth between that. So you have to find something that makes you feel again, and then do it. Like it sounds overly simplistic, but it's the hardest thing ever, but you just have to do it, and eventually you see yourself start to come back. I look back now and I don't even know. And I hate it because I'll say, I don't even know how I got here, because it's been almost 9 years now and I don't know. But then I'm like, I do know how I got here, because it was a lot of hard work and intention. I made the intention that I was going to heal for my children, for my other children, and we were going to take Sterling with us in everything we did. And as long as we're alive, he's alive. So that's how that kind of gave me a purpose and gave me like, I can go, I can share his story. He can make a difference. And that's what I do.
Yes. I love it. Yes. What Tori said.
This last question before we wrap up is something that I'm quite positive you guys have heard some awful things from both well-meaning and people and strangers alike. Can you hit us with some of the things that you definitely want the rest of the CHD community not to say or not to do?
Anything that starts with at least is no, just don't. Or but
Yeah.
definitely that gotta go too, like, and honestly, we've been very blessed to not have very many, but one thing that just really chaps my hide, and I know is unintentional, is the count of kids I have. And I know that that's an uncomfortable conversation, but when you specifically say I have 3 kids, I'm coming for you. When you say everybody else, but you don't include her, depending on the topic, obviously, I'm not asking for you to address Maddie on our Christmas card, but please say I have 4 kids. I do not have 3 kids. I have 4 kids. No matter how uncomfortable that might be, I've made a vow to myself to say I have 4 kids. So if you're thinking it's a bad idea, it's probably a bad idea. But yeah, at least you don't. No, just thank you. Prayers appreciated. Don't start that sentence.
Rashaan, anything?
I have a huge pet peeve when people try to sympathize and empathize with you, and then they begin to compare. I get that you lost your cousin or whatever to whatever you lost it to, but it's not the same feeling. So just the comparison aspect for me just really just boils my blood.
Tori?
I know it's going to sound really bad, but when people are like, but look at all that you've done, and your work has clearly, like, I'm sure there are children out there that are saved because, you know what? I'm grateful that he has a legacy, and that, maybe children get pulse ox now in part because of him and the other children that died without knowing that they had defects. But if you asked any one of us parents if we were okay, like, our children were not a sacrifice for yours, at all. If I had it to do over again, I would do anything, obviously, for him to still be here. So I'm doing those things because I feel like that's what I'm doing to honor him. It's not, I don't even know how to say this, but when people say that to me, I get what they're trying to say, and I get that they're trying to make it like, oh, but look at you, you've done all these things and it's great, but it doesn't negate the fact that he's dead. So like, I really, when you're going to compare, like, or say that to anybody, I think you should stop, because I don't think any parent would ever choose anything in life over having their children here. So yeah.
Tori nailed it again. Can I add one more real quick to piggy off of Reshawn?
Sure.
When you say it's nothing compared to is equally as bad. So, oh, I'm having a rough day. And then they look at me like, oh, I just said that to have, oh, it's nothing compared to. Right. But let's not bring up the white elephant in the room, shall we? Like, right. It's already awkward. Like, let's take that back, So I would say that's just as bad too.
Yeah, I guess the comparison trap of that people could get into, of, comparing if their losses or their grief to yours, or even their struggles and stuff during that time. I think that just makes it awkward all the way around, and it's just one of those conversations. It's like, it's just going to go bad from the start. So I would say that trying to compare things, and I get guilty of it too sometimes, but trying to like not have that be known, I would say that's the hardest part. I'd be like, oh well, it's not that bad, but then you're like, oh, yeah, let's stop that. Let's rein it back in.
Yeah.
So you guys all know that I'm the education coordinator at Conquering CHD, and so I'm all about finding resources and helping people and connecting people to what things that they're in need of. And so I wanted to wrap up our talk today with a couple of points for the larger CHD community. Actionable steps. So all of those that you at home watching, this is what I would really like you to work on. Number one is talk about the children that we've mentioned today and all of those that we've lost to CHD. Say their names, remember them, share their stories and pictures with your friends and family, with the family of the one that was lost. I am definitely going to be handing out some of those Maddie cards, and my children are always on the hunt for giraffes for Sterling. And so Reshawn, you need to let me know how we can help remember Kyron, because we need to add that into the mix here in our house. So the other point that I wanted to really drive home to everyone else in the CHD community is something that you all touched on, is that you can't forget everyone in the family when a loss occurs. Siblings, grandparents, aunts and uncles, siblings who are older, maybe don't live at home anymore. They're often left out of the grief conversation. So I thank you all for bringing that up and reminding me of that. And then the last one is just, I want each of you to go to your centers the next time your kids or yourself have an appointment and really talk to your care team and advocate for mental health support for all CHD families. Because hearing that you guys had the hospital program for the 8 weeks after is wonderful. But really with the number one birth defect, we've got to have more robust mental health support for all CHD families. So those are the three things that I really want everyone watching to go out and tackle. And then I'd like to close out the panel with an anonymous quote. Let me pull up my thing to make sure I get it right. Grief never ends, but it changes. It's a passage, not a place to stay. Grief is not a sign of weakness, but it is a price of love. So in honor of Maddie B, Queen of Hearts, Sterling, and Kyron, thank you all for joining us today, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.